All right, in this lesson, we are going to be talking about percents. Specifically, we're going to be talking about percents and number equivalents. So basically, we're going to be going forwards and backwards from a number to a percent or percent back to a number. So just kind of a big thing of, like, okay, that's great, but what does it mean? So just kind of a quick what does it mean is anytime you have a percent, it's always something out of 100. That's the fraction idea of it. And then whatever that number is over 100 is the percent you're talking about. So for example, if you have 82 over 100, then that just means it's 82%. And then that's the decimal version of it. So that's kind of what we're talking about, is going back and forth between the two. So here, this is the thing. So when you do this, there's a very specific kind of like, how do you do this? And it's going to be either you're multiplying by 100 or you're dividing by 100, which also just means you're moving a decimal. And you're going to move a decimal two places. But how do I know which direction to go? This is kind of my key to help me remember which direction I'm going. So what I remember is 1/4 is equivalent to 0.25, but 1/4 is also 25% of something. So if I can remember that 0.25 equals 25%, that means if I'm going to go from a decimal to a percent, I'm going to be moving my decimal 2 spots to the right. I'm going from a decimal or a percent to a decimal, I'm moving my decimal 2 spots to the left. Okay, that's my key to kind of help me remember, shoot, which way do I go? So, for example, it says, how do you change a number to a percent? You are going to multiply by 100. And all that means is you're multiplying by 100 just means that you're moving the decimal 2 spots to the right. So that's kind of the idea that we're going to do on all of these. So to write a decimal or whole number as a percent, so 0.27 would be us just moving the decimal 2 spots to the right. And so that's going to be equal to, make that 7, 27%. All right, if we move it here, same thing. I don't care that I have 3 decimals. It's still, no matter what, you're moving 2 decimal places to the right. So you are at 87.5%. All right, and then if you have 1.73, 2 spots to the right, so you're 173%. So any whole number is going to put you over 100%. So like 2 is going to put you over 100%. We'll come back to that. So same thing here, 1, 2. So that's actually still a decimal, but it's 0.4%. All right, and then the last one, if you have the number 2, which is totally fine. Let me kind of say that here's your decimal, and you're going to be moving 2 spots to the right. So you need to fill, so that 2 represents 200%. All right. And then if you have a fraction, rather than starting with a number or a decimal, all you're going to do is turn it into the decimal. And once you turn in the decimal, you have your percent. Now this one is already 67 out of 100, so that is 67%. So to be honest, if you can make anything into something out of 100, then you have your percent. So I'll show you 2 different ways to do this. One of them is you could take this right into a calculator, 1 divided by 4. And this is how grades would happen. 1 divided by 4, you got 1 out of 4 right. That equaled 0.25. And then how do we turn it into a decimal or into a percent? We would be bumping that over. So 25%. So there is another way to do it. It's definitely probably a longer route. But if you have 1/4, and this would work for kind of anything. If you have, down here. If you have a 1/4, if you can make it out of 100, then you basically have exactly what you need. You have your percent. So to make 4 into 100, now this doesn't work on everything, but a 4 can turn into 100 by multiplying it by 25. So then whatever you're doing to the bottom, you're also doing to the top. That makes that a 25 out of 100, which makes it 25%. Okay, so sometimes that's not a bad way to go, especially if you don't have a calculator or something like that. If you can by chance make the bottom, the denominator 100, then you have your percent. All right, so just like on all these others, I'm going to basically make all of these look like these, and then I move my decimal. So 3 1/2 is 3.5. And then I need to move my decimal 2 spots to the right, so I'll have to fill. So 350%. All right, and then 7/4 is basically 7 divided by 4, which is 1.75. If you throw that into a calculator, and then move our decimal 2 spots, so 175%. All right, and then the last one is 2 divided by 3. So 2 divided by 3 is some decimal. Let's see. So 2 divided by 3 is 0.666666. So we got to cut it off at some point. I always kind of take these 3 decimal places. So, well, we'll just do a bunch of them. We're going to round it to the 3rd decimal place. So I need the 4th decimal place. So really I take it to 4 decimal places, but then I round it to 3 decimal places. So, so that 6 is going to make that a 7. So we're looking at 0.667. And now we can move the decimal 2 spots, which is 66.7 degrees. All right. Okay. And then if you're going the other direction, it says, how do you change a percent to a number? You are going to divide by 100. So if I go back to my key, I'm taking a percent into a decimal. So I'm going to be moving the decimal back 2 spots to make it look like that. Okay, so it's all just moving the decimal 2 spots, and you just got to figure out which direction. So this is going to go back 1, 2. So that's 0.87. This is going to go back 1, 2. So that's 0.265. And they're not percentages. It's a decimal version of a percent. And here we're going to go back 1, 2. So 1.27. And it's bigger than, there's a 1, so that was more than 100%. And then 7 is 1, 2. So you'll have to fill that gap right there. So 0.07. Okay. So let's go to the next page. All right. And then if you have, doesn't change just because you have a decimal on your percent, you're still going back 1, 2. So now it's 0.009. And then there's our answer. And then here we're looking at 19/20 is a decimal. So if you take 19 divided by 20 on the calculator, you're getting 2.95, right? Because that would be 0.95. We would just tack it on to the 2.95. And then you are moving your decimal back 1, 2 spots. So you're equal to 0.029. All right, and then the last one of these is 1/3 is going to be 0.3 repeating on forever. So that's a 167.33 on percent. We'll cut it off there. And then I'm still moving my decimal back 1, 2 spots. So 1.6733%. And it redirections, make sure you know where it is that you're supposed to be rounding this into. So that may end up cutting off less than that. All right, and then last thing is write the percent as a fraction or a mixed number. So if you take a percent, remember that the whole main idea of a percent is something out of 100. So 82% would be 82 over 100, and then we simplify. So 65% is 65 over 100. And then we're going to simplify it. But we can do this with a calculator. 65 divided by 100. It's going to get you the decimal version, which is not what you want. But if you press the math button, math, frac, that very first option is going to take whatever your last answer was, and that arrow represents it's going to convert it to a fraction. Okay, and the nice thing about this is it's converted into the simplest terms every time. So 13/20 is what we get. All right, which means these things might be able to go pretty quick. Now they will get a little trickier. Is 1/4% is 1/4 over 100. Well, we'll let the calculator do the work for us. So fraction-wise, 1/4 over 100 is something. And then I want the fraction version of that. So I'm going to press the math button, math frac, and I get 1 over 400. Okay. And then 250 is 250 over 100. So just like on any of these others. Now this one I'm going to try to do in my head a little bit. I can divide a 50 out of both of them. So if I divide a 50 out of the 100, I get a 2. If I divide a 50 out of 250, I get a 5. So that is my simplest form. Okay, or I guess since they do say a mixed number, I probably shouldn't leave it like that. Now that's when I'm going to go 2 goes into 5, 2 times with 1 left over. 2 and 1/2. All right, and then this one is 83 1/3 divided by 100. So what you want to do on this one really, the problem with the 1/3 is it goes on forever. So it's hard to take that and kind of incorporate it in. So your easiest thing to do on this is to turn it into a fraction over 100. By that, I mean, let's make this a mixed or an improper fraction. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do 83 times 3 plus 1. So 83 times 3 plus 1. Okay, so that 250 is my numerator. So it's really 250 thirds percent. All right, and then I can go all right, so we got 250 thirds. So we can take 200 and just like over here, we had 1/4. So we're taking 1/4 over 100. So we're also taking 250 thirds over 100. All right, so just be careful with your parentheses, just like we did in the last one. So we're going to put 250 divided by 3 and divided by 100. All right, so that is our that's our fraction. We don't want that's our decimal. We don't want the decimal. We're going to math frac it, and we get 5/6. Okay, so 12.5 is just going to be 12.5 out of 100. Okay, so 12.5. Give me the decimal, math frac. So 1/8. And then last thing, 600% is 600 out of 100, and that just becomes 6. All right, so math frac is the key. So as you go through these things, just remember that if you're turning a percent into a fraction, doesn't happen all that often, but if you do need to do that, basically divide it by 100, turn it into a decimal, and then let the calculator do the fraction conversion for you. All right, that's it.